Are you feeling desperate because you've got no money to spend or have crazy amounts of debt in FM23? Well, I've got the 10 best tips to help you boost your finances. And there might even be a bonus tip somewhere, so stick around. For the first tip, we're looking at how to approach the transfer market. And the best way is to adopt a Moneyball-like approach. Now, I'm specifically not saying Moneyball in its entirety, as you don't really have to focus on stats-driven transfers. But when you're strapped for cash, it's important to adopt two of the key aspects of the Moneyball approach. Buy players based on value and always sell when a good bid comes in for any one of your players. On the one hand, this means that when you're buying players, you don't want to focus on getting the absolute best player, but the best player relative to the amount of money that you have to spend for them. And don't underestimate free signings as well. On the other hand, no matter how much you love your star player, if a good bid comes in for him, you have to sell him. There's another player out there somewhere that can at least partially replace him. And if that sale means financial security, it's gonna be worth it in the long run. On to tip number 2, and that's being proactive with selling your players at their highest value. When looking at your squad, you have to look at your players as valuable assets, and the worst thing that can happen to an asset is its value deteriorating. Apart from keepers, a player's value will usually go down once they hit 30. So if you got a player that's 28 or 29, even if he's still a part of your first team, it's probably best to try and ship him out before his value starts evaporating into thin air. Continuing on the trend of selling players, tip number 3 is all about finding players in your squad with horrible contracts and getting them out. Now, you might have heard this tip before, but I think a lot of players are overlooking some horrible contracts in their squad. 99% of players will only look at the wages per week of a player, but that doesn't tell the whole story of a contract. To evaluate the full financial impact of a contract, you have to calculate the total cost across the years of that contract. Take the player's wages per week, multiply that by 52, and then multiply that by the amount of years still left on the contract. Also, don't forget to add any of the bonuses in the player's contract that you think would be able to be achieved. Now you've got the full financial picture, and that fringe player that didn't initially have the biggest wages can reveal himself to be a big financial burden, so get him out. On to tip number 4, and it's more of a sanity check in the transfer market, but still, don't sign players that you don't need. I know I've got 4 strikers, but he looks so good. No, but his potential. No, but his name. No. I don't care how amazing he is. If you don't have the money and you don't actually need the player, there's no room to take that kind of risk, so you better behave. For tip number 5, let's switch our focus to our staff and look at the power of using dual roles. Especially when your club is in debt, every penny counts, and that includes staff wages. So you can fill out your entire backroom staff, all of them taking some of your money per week, or you can see if you can limit that number by using some of your staff members in 2 roles at once. Combinations like a coach also being a scout or a scout also being an analyst can work perfectly. Will this instantly make you millions? No, but over the years it might just make the difference. Which segues nicely into tip number 6. Evaluate if you really need every staff role. Especially at the bigger clubs, you have the option to fill out every possible staff role, but not all of them are needed. For example, if you already manage loaning out players and evaluating their progress, then what's the need of a loan manager? And if you already manage your own backroom staff, which I highly recommend if you're financially weak, then why have a technical director? Have a look at all of the staff roles and determine if they're actually gonna have value for you. And if not, don't have them on the payroll. A little warning though, if you're looking to get rid of a staff member that you don't have any use for, be aware of the cost of his contract termination. In this situation, calculate the total financial impact of his contract and see if it weighs up against the contract termination cost. Now it's time for the bonus tip. When looking to sign a staff member, adopt a Moneyball-like approach again, which means that you have to look at the staff member's ability relative to the compensation that you have to pay for him. Sure, that one coach in another club might be a bit better than the free one, but the free one won't cost you any compensation, so he might be the best option for you in your financially weak situation. Now there's 4 tips left, and they're all looking at different aspects of running your club. And for tip number 7, consider completely getting rid of your B or youth teams. Now hold up, what about all the valuable playing time and development? That would be valuable if they're actually playing games. It's possible that the league of your B or youth teams won't be loaded in with your current save setup, so they won't actually be playing any games. If that's the case, they're just costing you money, so get rid of them. Sell all the players, get rid of the staff, and save you some money. Now if they do have games, it's probably more valuable to keep them, but take control of their staff like you did with your own staff to make them as efficient as possible. Now for tip number 8, which is looking at your scouting department, and specifically which scouting package you're going to be using. Now the temptation will be to get the highest one possible, as you want to look at as many players as you can. But these scouting packages have a bigger financial impact than you might think. So even though it hurts, you can boost your finances by taking a smaller scouting package and looking for some bargains closer to home. On to tip number 9, which is a sneaky way for smaller clubs to make some instant money by strategically scheduling friendlies. Your friendlies are usually scheduled for you, but if you take control and schedule your own friendlies, you can look to play some matches against bigger teams, as their matches will attract more viewers and get you significantly more money. Just don't go overboard, as you also want some friendlies that you can actually win, so you don't completely destroy your team morale before the season even begins. And for tip number 10, I've got a situational tip in case you need some money right now. A lot of transfers nowadays will include a sell-on clause for a certain percentage of the next transfer fee. If you go to the transfer screen, click on clauses and then in, you'll get an overview of all of the transfer clauses for players that your club has sold, either by yourself or in real life. If any of them has a little money sign next to them, you have the option to give up on that clause and sell it right now to instantly boost your club's finances. But what about selling players for a lot of cash? Well, check out this video to learn everything that you need to know to get the most amount of money for your players. I'll see you on the next video.